So this question comes in from an individual inventor, and I'm going to presume a few things about this person to answer the question. But the question is it worth it to get a patent? And that's really a judgment call. What I always do is I'm very frank with somebody wanting patent protection, and I talk about the whole cost from end to end. Quite often you'll go and talk to somebody a patent attorney, and that person will tell you the cost of maybe the next step. This is how much it costs to write a patent. But that's not the salient point when you're trying to figure out if it's worth it. What you want to know is what it's going to cost to write it, to pay the government fees, to argue it, to get it issued, to pay the annuities on the back end. And typically it's about a third of the cost goes to writing it, a third of the cost goes to government fees, and a third of the cost goes to arguing your patent. So depending on the technology, the costs tend to average out differently. So a simple mechanical device might be all in on average $25,000, but that really means probably $20,000 to $30,000 typically, but could be much more depending on your circumstance. Electronics and software tends to be a little bit more than that. I would say $35,000 would be a good number to be thinking about, but again, it varies on the complexity and how much argument is required. And chemistry and life sciences tends to be even more than that, and I would say there you should budget around $45,000. And that happens over time, right? And especially if you're just getting your idea off the ground, you have to know what costs will hit when. And the patent process, it can take many years to get your patent. And then even after it issues, you have to pay annuities, government fees to keep it in force. So that all happens over time. So you really have to be thinking about what's going to cost what when, so that you can afford it. But for many products, the prospect of filing a patent and getting patent protection is just too costly. I had met one inventor, and she had come up with this beauty product. It was the sort of thing that sold for less than $1. And as we were talking through the cost of the patent and that, it became very clear very quickly that she was going to have to sell this thing for probably $5 to ever recoup the investment in the patent. So think about that cost. Think about when that cost is going to hit and whether you can afford to finance it. And whether at the end of the day, that cost, that protection you get your patent right, is going to provide you adequate protection and be worth it given the total cost of the process. And that's just for one patent. You could end up in a circumstance where your product requires several patents to be filed, maybe overseas filings. So very quickly it can get very expensive. One exception to that is a design patent. A design patent covers the ornamental features rather than the functionality of it. And those design patents can tend to be, 1/10 the cost per jurisdiction. So you might be looking at, $2,000 to $3,000 for a design patent. But the protection is very narrow. It's just the ornamental configuration of something and not how it functions. So talk to your patent attorney and find out what's appropriate, whether it's design patent or utility patent, what I talked about at the beginning, and then what the costs are going to be and what the costs are going to be over time. And make sure they're talking about the whole process and just not the next step, which is what they tend to do. All right, thank you. If you have any additional questions, please leave them below in the comments, and I'll get to them in my next video. Thank you.